Protecting a quarterback's blind side makes playing left tackle one of the most critical positions on the entire football field. Left tackles are expected to match up against the freakiest pass rushers on the planet. One mistake, and you could get the QB killed. It's not a position for the faint of heart. It's not a position about glamour. It's a blue collar type, bucket and lunch pail. Do your job every day and don't get much credit. College teams usually move their best offensive linemen to left tackle, but sticking at the position in the NFL requires more than just being a good offensive lineman. You need an elite set of traits. But like every position on the offensive line, it's all about hard work. And Will Campbell embodies that philosophy. He grew up on an agricultural farm and played multiple sports throughout his childhood. His high school team had a ton of success and end up being part of LSU's program rebuild. They would end up firing head coach Ed Oregon and bring in Brian Kelly to lead that new role. Kelly had already recruited Campbell at Notre Dame, so the familiarity helped. Starting as a true freshman, Will Campbell looked like the future at the position. He started all 3 seasons at LSU, including anchoring the line for Jaden Daniels in 2023 en route to a national championship run, and he became the first LSU offensive lineman ever to earn the coveted number 7 jersey patch. It's traditional at LSU to give the top playmaker the number 7 jersey. Campbell was the first offensive lineman in school history to ever earn that honor. Unfortunately, due to SEC rules, he still had to wear number 66 on game days. Offensive linemen weren't allowed to wear number 7, but he had the number 7 jersey patch and wore that jersey in spring practice. Today, I'm going to break down all of Will Campbell's strengths and weaknesses, as well as what he brings to the Chicago Bears roster. Let's lean into the strengths and weaknesses from Dane Brugler as featured in this year's The Beast. First, his strengths. He moves with athletic body control to stay balanced mid-slide and through engagement. His balance is incredible. He has amazing lateral footwork, he's very agile, and he's able to ride rushers wide of the pocket. He stays controlled and patient, even against dynamic pass rushers. He has incredibly impressive recovery skills to maintain leverage and stay connected on his blocks. He has a mechanically sound process to gradually anchor against power. He plays with purposeful inside hands, and he gets fistfuls of jersey to control his man. He makes it look easy on combo blocks. He's very comfortable at handling stunts and loops regardless of how much space is given to him, and this is one of the reasons why he does project so well as a guard inside. LSU's offense used him more as a puller in 2024, taking advantage of his athleticism and nimble movements, and he was able to easily pick off defenders. He's one of those guys who mentally is just able to flip a switch on the field, and he prides himself playing with that nasty mentality. He's wired to block through the whistle, and his high school coaches said he actually had a hard time avoiding flags because he was over aggressive. He's a relentless worker and named a team captain as a sophomore and junior. Brian Kelly said when he speaks, people really listen. And he was the first offensive or defensive lineman to ever be awarded LSU's number 7 jersey patch. He never missed a game because of injury, starting 38 straight at left tackle. He was LSU's first consensus All-American on the offensive line since 2004. A legit blue chip offensive line prospect. What are his weaknesses? Well, the main one is always this: his below average arm length. It does show up on tape, and he would have the lowest wingspan of any left tackle in NFL history. He just simply doesn't have a margin for error if his punch is mistimed, and he is very inconsistent at timing that punch as well. He has some slight stiffness in his lower half that shows up on tape when he's reacting to those speed to power moves to the inside. He's routinely able to recover after he gets beat with the bull rush initially, but NFL power might bring new challenges. How is his anchor going to hold up in the NFL? His penalties increased every season, including 7 false starts his final year. He lacks versatility as he only played left tackle in college, although he is a guy who projects to play any position in the NFL. Let's take a look at his advanced statistics over the last 3 years. He allowed 2 sacks in 2024 and 2022. He didn't allow a single sack in 2023. He allowed more pressures every single year, though, finishing up with 18 in 2024. It was also his lowest graded year, and he gave up the most penalties. When watching the tape, it's hard to not love his work ethic and his ability to finish blocks. He has refined technique, but his issues with his arm length do show up on film. On top of that, there are a couple of concerning trends here in Campbell's play at LSU. His 2024 season was his lowest graded of his career. He had a higher grade, allowed less pressures, and had 8 less penalties as a true freshman than he did his junior season. I think defensive coordinators and pass rushers have started to pinpoint Campbell's weaknesses and attack him. This will only continue at the NFL level. He had only 1 penalty as a freshman before committing 5 in 2023 and 9 this season in 2024. This is something I have not heard many people talk about, but it's definitely concerning to me. Only 1 penalty in 882 snaps as a true freshman in the SEC. That's absolutely phenomenal. But then you give up 9 penalties and more pressures as a junior after 3 years of work? What happened there, and what are the casual fans missing? This is what I dig deep for. There's a clear downward trend of Campbell's play after his freshman season. I went ahead and calculated Campbell's total snaps, sacks, pressures, and penalties and allowed for a clear indicative stat here: snaps per pressure or penalty. As a true freshman, Campbell was absolutely elite, going 51.88 snaps per pressure or penalty. But that has trended down in his last 2 years at LSU, falling to 36.59 in 2023 and just 29.63 in 2024. Pair that with his penalties going up every year and that he allowed more pressures every year, and it's clear that Campbell has struggled with arm length, and defenders have found his weakness. His arms and wingspan wouldn't be an issue if he had absolutely perfect technique, but he has inconsistent punch timing, and he simply lacks the length to make up for it when he makes a mistake. Because of this, it forces Campbell to play different at times. Instead of being patient on the edge and letting pass rushers come to him, he's more aggressive, and he tries to use his athleticism to engage the block quicker. Because of this, he can get beat with speed to power or inside counter moves. And on top of that, he occasionally loses battles to long arm moves, and he loses leverage in the run game to these longer arm defenders. It simply does show up on tape. You just have to really look for it. But projecting Campbell inside to guard also shows what a special prospect he is. While some guys like West Virginia's Wyatt Milam are probably going to need a year or longer to adjust and learn the intricacies of the guard position, Will Campbell is a day one, plug and play difference maker at guard in the NFL. His footwork, IQ, and hand technique all project as major positives inside at guard. His NFL comparison to me is Peter Skoronski or Sam Cosmi, two recent left tackles who had massive success at the collegiate level, but they would end up getting moved inside to guard once they got to the NFL. Unlike those two players, though, I do believe there's a small chance that Will Campbell can stick at left tackle in the NFL. He has incredible footwork, athleticism, and extremely high football IQ. Paired with his impressive recovery skills and refined technique, and if he can continue improving in the NFL, you have a guy who could be a 10-year starter at left tackle. The question just becomes about where he's going to play. To some teams, that won't matter. You either get a top quality left tackle prospect or an all pro left guard, or he could play right guard or center as well. Another comparison here to me is Colts left tackle Bernard Raymond, the only left tackle in the NFL who has sub 33-inch arms. Could Campbell become the second? It's not impossible. But I believe the biggest thing here, it's not about what I think or what you think. It's about what team drafts Will Campbell and what that team sees him as. If they see him as a guard, he's going to play guard in the NFL. If they let him play tackle, he'll get a chance. but it comes down to the team that picks him. As far as the Chicago Bears, I think this one's tough. I believe if we did draft him in the top 10, I think we would give him a chance to play left tackle. That doesn't mean we would keep him at left tackle, but I think we would maybe give him a chance, see if our offensive line coach, Dan Rashar, could refine his technique and improve his consistency on punches, and maybe, just maybe, we'd have our franchise left tackle. But considering we have Joe Tooney at left guard, I don't think people realize how much he'll help whoever starts next to him. Joe Tooney's going to help Braxton Jones or Karan Amagaji or maybe even a rookie starter like Will Campbell. So there's another point here. Tooney's consistency and overall upgrades on the interior of this O-line is going to make things easier on whoever plays left tackle. But the bottom line with Will Campbell is that he's possibly the safest offensive line prospect in this entire draft, and he has the highest floor. I think at the very least, he's a 10-year starter with all pro upside at guard. Whatever team drafts him won't be upset at that, but expectations might be tied to what position he plays in the NFL. Campbell flashes all of the traits to be a 10-year starter and franchise left tackle for a team, but odds are he moves inside to guard in the NFL. My issue with that is Will Campbell's different. His work ethic, demeanor, and attitude make him a guy that I'm not fond of betting against. If he stays at tackle in the NFL, it'll go against all historical trends. He would have the shortest wingspan of any blindside blocker in the history of the NFL. But if anyone can do it, Will Campbell might just be that guy. But to me, I think he most likely ends up as a guard in the NFL. And for the Bears, we already have Joe Tooney in the fold. But one thing I won't discount here is maybe Will Campbell could be the long-term replacement for Joe Tooney. Maybe he doesn't have as much left in the tank as most of us believe. There was one stat that was a little bit alarming to me: the amount of snaps that Joe Tooney has took in the playoffs the last 10 years. He's played more than another full season of playoff games. He has 21 career playoff starts. So if we had Joe Tooney mentoring Will Campbell and our left guard position was elite for the next 10 to 12 years, I don't think that would be an issue. But the bottom line is Will Campbell's talent and versatility make him a solid blue chip type of prospect in this year's draft. But teams will view him differently. But he's a guy who can play any position on this offensive line, and he offers all pro upside. I didn't even mention that you could move him to center, and he'd probably dominate there as well. I think he could be the best center in the NFL, or maybe even the next Joe Tooney. So simply put, he's a great player that is going to make some teams' offensive line much better. I've been back and forth on Will Campbell throughout this draft process, but it comes down to one thing for me. Regardless of where he plays, he will be a leader and one of the best starters on a team's O-line. Considering all of that, I would not mind drafting him at pick 10. But he could go as high as number 4 to the Patriots. It's going to come down to whether NFL teams view him as a guard or tackle. But regardless, he would help the Chicago Bears O-line. I have him as my 7th blue chip player in this year's draft. Part of the reason I put so much time into this topic and Will Campbell is because the Bears do have a major issue at left tackle looming next season. I think we're perfectly fine this year if we don't draft a tackle. Because we have Braxton Jones, he should be our starter. And then Karan Amagaji is going to have an entire offseason program, all of OTAs, mini camps, training camp, and preseason to get better. But next year, we have potentially a huge hole with Braxton Jones entering free agency and tackles getting paid crazy money. I think drafting another tackle, at least a developmental guy, makes too much sense. Let me know your guys' thoughts on Will Campbell and if you'd like him to be a Chicago Bear. I have more of these scouting reports on the way. I'm releasing one every day at 11 a.m. Central, noon Eastern. Check out Jalen Walker's video from yesterday if you missed that, and another one on the way tomorrow. I put a ton of work into these videos, including watching every single snap of these guys' college All-22 tape. Please hit that like button for me. Share this video with your friends. Stay tuned. I have more on the way. And until next time, bear down.